Welcome to another episode of the Nurture with Grace podcast. We hope this episode gives you encouragement, ideas, and practical strategies as you continue raising your young champions. You're doing an amazing job, and your little ones are truly blessed to have you. Please remember, this content is for general information and encouragement only, not medical or clinical advice. If you need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a qualified professional.
Today, we're really excited to have Sarah Bilan here. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
So great to be here. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Sarah is a clinical psychologist, a pastor. So we're really hoping that today we're going to be able to unpack some of the burdens that parents with neurodivergent kids go through. Now, just a bit of a disclaimer, some of the things we talk about today might be a little bit triggering for you, might be a little bit heavy. So if you feel a bit worn out from what we're talking about, please consider talking to an expert, a consultant. And if you're based in Adelaide, South Australia, I would highly recommend that you check out Futures Wellness, where Sarah works as a psychologist. They've got a lot of supports there they can provide if you need that kind of support. So yeah, a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about is heavy stuff. So just brace yourself, and if you need any support, just remember to reach out to someone that can help you. We're talking about caring without burnout, and to give you a bit of context of what really prompted us to to focus on this particular topic today, is we see the amount of weight that raising autistic children has on parents, and not just on parents, but on marriages. The sad reality is we tend to go to environments whereby there's a lot of single parents or marriages that are pretty much on the rocks, or it could be just be good marriages, but you can tell that people are really pushed towards the extreme. So we know that this can take on a toll on parenting and the relationship. So we're kind of hoping that we can be able to sort of discuss some strategies. So from your experience, you've worked along families going through all sorts of challenges, whether it's neurodivergence or other things. What does emotional load look like for parents, and what tend to happen when they carry that weight over time?
I think there can be a huge, both a mental and emotional load for parents. Even just, let's start with the mental load. There's so much to think about, so many things to be aware of, whether it's appointments or researching or finding out information. There's just a lot of mental load, just even in the day-to-day. It can be, there's an emotional load of even just almost constantly being alert, right? Being on the lookout or being hyper-vigilant to support your child, or thinking through what might be a potential challenge or a potential trigger. So there's lots of just constantly being on alert. There can be just the emotional, weight of just the difficulties that you navigate in the day to day, and obviously the care that you have for your child, and it's a lot to carry. And I think that over time that can take a toll, because it's not just mental, it's emotional. And it can really it can fatigue us over time, constantly having to carry the weight of these things going in one day to the next. And that's why it's so important to be aware of supports or ways to take care of ourselves, because it can take such a toll and be weighty. Absolutely, 100%. And one thing I find with the parents, you can get so much into action mode. You just get in there and just do. And sometimes you don't realize how much weight you're carrying and how much it's affecting you emotionally. How can parents recognize that there's a signs of mental load are becoming too heavy? Because as a parents, we are almost like the silent matter in a way, and you kind of feel like, okay, well, I gotta get myself together, because that's part of parenting. How can parents start to recognize when things are it's becoming too heavy for them to I think there's signs, both probably physically, emotionally, and even in our relationships. So, sometimes it can impact our physical health, and that maybe you're not sleeping well, maybe you are having lots of headaches or digestive issues, or you're getting sick and run down a lot. Our body can handle a lot of stress and pressure, but it does start to take a physical toll, and that's that's perhaps a sign that maybe I need to get some support or help. Sometimes emotional signs can be that it can go either way. We can be quite teary and easily upset, easily irritated, or we can be really numb and shut down and we're just numb all the time, and that can be a problem as well, and a sign that, you know, maybe things are starting to take a toll. It can impact us in our relationships. That might be that we're withdrawing from, you know, we're so overwhelmed that it's like, I just don't have time for friends, I don't have time to see anyone, I just can't deal with anything extra. It might be that in our relationships that we're quite snappy, which obviously happens in relationships, but all the time. There's no positive moments, it's just snappiness all the time. And I think when we start to see extremes in any of these things, or it feels like that this is the commonplace all the time, it is a sign to go, okay, you know, maybe something's going on where I need to focus on myself or get some strategies or get some support, because it's not a healthy place to live in 24/7. And it so easily happens because, again, of the weight that we're carrying in the day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a lot of the time we find, and, you know, we can probably relate to this, we sometimes get a bit anxious because sometimes we kind of try to think, you know, when will my child get to the next sort of, you know, milestone, because obviously they're behind. So a lot of the parents that we've met, they'll say, I'm the anxious one, I'm always on the alert, trying to predict, trying to plan. What's kind of more accurate way to understand that feeling?
Yeah, I think that, look, it is hard because things are stressful, right? These are difficult situations that weigh heavily on us because we care so much about our kids. And so I think it's having that compassion to understand, look, I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling anxious, and that's okay. There's a reason for it, and I care about these things. These are weighty things that I care about. So I think even normalizing it to a degree that, okay, I am feeling a bit stressed, or I am feeling a bit anxious, and there's reason for me to feel this way, and that is actually okay. It makes sense that I'm feeling this way because this is a hard situation. I think too, the challenge in life is it's okay to feel anxious when things are hard. Yes. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel stressed. It's just then about how do we manage those feelings? How do we manage it in the best way that we can? I think sometimes we'd like to think, oh, well, no, I can't feel anxious. I can't ever feel stressed or overwhelmed. I cannot feel anxiety. Well, no, sometimes we do for very valid reasons. In life, you can't avoid those things because there's lots of things in life that are hard, but it's about having self-compassion to go, okay, I am overwhelmed, I am anxious, but then it's about how do I best manage it? And I think that's a better approach, recognizing I am feeling this way. What can I do to manage it in the best way possible?
Yeah. Which leads me to the next point, which is our nervous system, which is always on the alert. So what does co-regulation with the child actually looks like in real life? Because as we know, if we're dysregulated, our child is dysregulated, it's not going well.
Yes. So the great thing about this is there is so much that our kids actually learn from us in us learning how we can best regulate ourselves. And so, you know, we can't pour from an empty cup, right? It's very challenging, but we first have to make sure that we're okay so we can be the best support for our children and so that we can model to them what it looks like to regulate ourselves. And I actually think that it is okay, you know, in the right and the appropriate way to actually be able to say to a child, Mum's feeling a little bit stressed right now. Mum's feeling actually name it. Mum's feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, so we're just going to take a moment and we're going to XYZ. We're going to take a moment just to have a little bit of quiet time or to practice some breathing. And you know what? We can do this together. Or you're modeling to your child what it looks like to actually regulate, but you're also doing it for yourself in that moment, which is very, very helpful. But it's actually okay to teach our kids by saying, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed and I need a moment just to have some quiet time. Let's do this together. It's helping me in that moment, but it's also helping my child to understand that this is okay.
That's really good. In fact, I'm learning from that, because I think for me, I'm still doing some work on my emotional work.
Yeah.
And there are times I do feel, okay, I really do actually need to go out and just do some deep breathing. But and there are times I will tell my son as well, it's like, okay, I think it's time for us to do some deep breathing. And I'm thinking, I'm actually doing this for myself.
Yes, but they're learning too. How good is that? It's a win-win.
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's because we are so used to wanting to shield our kids from emotion. So what we, and it's common for parents. We want to protect our children, but in the process of protecting them, we are withholding some critical life skills that we could be teaching them about how we process things that could potentially help. I mean, obviously there's a balance. We don't want to burden them with things that are not that are too complex for a child to comprehend. But I feel it's also like choosing those choosing the right things to being able to sort of see what you can expose and model. Yeah,
because that's how kids learn resilience,
Absolutely.
right? They learn resilience by being able to be faced with challenging things, and they grow through them. And that's right. You know, I can say to my, I have a 6-year-old. I can say to my 6-year-old, Mum's feeling a bit overwhelmed. I don't need to explain why. He doesn't need to know the ins and outs of the complications that he won't understand. But I can name the emotion and let him know that just because I'm an adult doesn't mean that I don't feel stressed or overwhelmed, because that will allow him to understand, one, what that emotion is, but two, how to deal with those emotions, and it's okay to feel them in the first place.
We often talk about kids melting down, but parents also reach their breaking point too. And when parents are in that so-called red zone, what can they do at that moment to bring themselves back down?
Yeah. It's such a good question, because often we're so focused on our kids, but we have to remember that we've got to do it for ourselves too. Look, I think it depends on the situation, where you are and what's going on at the time. If you can, I always think it's really helpful just take a moment to leave the room if possible. Now, it depends where you are. If you're in a car, that's not possible. Sometimes there's things going on, you can't leave the room. But if the option is to just take a moment to leave the room, it is good, because it just gives you a moment to just catch your breath, to just stop, to just calm down, to practice a few strategies that we can talk about as well, and just recenter yourself and ground yourself. So if there's a possibility, leaving the room always helps. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we're in a car, there's no leaving, right? But there are some strategies that we can put in place that work no matter where you are. One of my favorite go-to strategies is breathing, deep breathing, because you can do that anywhere. There's a lot of strategies that are helpful but don't work when you're driving, or sometimes you can't leave a situation. But slowing down your breathing is something that we can all stop and do, and it is surprisingly effective. Now, look, does it make everything better? No, but it does help, and it's something we have control over, and it can be just as simple as just taking a few really, really deep breaths. With strategies like this, the longer you do them for, the most helpful they are. So if you can practice a couple of minutes of deep breathing, it's going to be really effective. But that's often my first go-to, because you can do that wherever you are. I think in a bit, just in general, when we're getting to our breaking point, beyond just that initial moment, sometimes we actually need to just give ourselves permission to just shift into survival mode. Some days it's a bad day, right? And that's okay. And so sometimes we just have to go, you know what? Today is not going to plan. It's not working. What is the bare minimum that we need to do to get through this day, right? We need to eat. We need to go to bed. That's okay, right? And actually just giving yourself permission to be like, sometimes things go out the window, and I can have this expectation of, but this, and this. But sometimes I just have to let it go, because it's not helpful. And so even in moments when we're feeling overwhelmed and close to breaking point, sometimes we actually just need to reassess and go, you know what, this isn't important right now. What needs to get done? Let's just focus on the basics and get through the day. And sometimes that's actually reaching out and asking for help too. So sometimes when we're at our breaking point, we need to, where we can, reach out to a support and say, can you help me with this? Or, what, if you can be specific, can you do this to help me in this moment? But sometimes we just have to go, I just got to get through the day. If that means ordering food, it's ordering food. If that means we don't worry about the task we plan, we don't worry about it, because there's no point putting that extra pressure when we're already at that breaking point.
There's something my wife and I tend to say to each other, we're allowed to check out sometimes.
Yes, I agree.
We're allowed to check out. She's allowed to come and say, I've had enough of this, son, go deal with him, and vice versa. And then sometimes it's kind of like, okay, do you just mind taking a son away for a few hours and then come back when it's chilled? We just give ourselves that space. Inevitably, at some point in time, you might try to let yourself, and that might go through the window. And before you realize, you're both in a screaming match with your son, with your kid, end up in a blow up. So after a blow up, because we've all been there, how can you repair the relationship with the child and bring it back to a point in time where we're able to restore safety and connection? Because we've all yelled at our children regardless of
Yes, and that is the important thing to remember. We've all been there. Everyone has been there, sometimes multiple times in a day, and that's just what life is like sometimes. But the repair is important, and it can just be really simple. It can be as simple as just once things have calmed down, going back to your child and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I got overwhelmed and I yelled, and that wasn't okay, and I'm sorry for that. And kids are very forgiving. They're very understanding. We don't need to pretend that just because we're the parent or because I'm an adult that I'm perfect and that everything that I do is right. We can actually say, hey, I'm sorry. And sometimes it can even be, my mum used to do this with me. It's funny. It's all coming back to me. I'm sorry I yelled. However, what I said was still right. Like, no, you still had to stop doing what you were doing, but the way that I said it, I'm really sorry for that. And even making that distinction, because there was still a reason why I yelled and that still wasn't okay, but I'm sorry that I yelled and I'm sorry that, that I upset you in that sense. And then taking a moment to actually reconnect with your child and whatever that looks like for them. So that might be giving them a hug. That might be spending some time doing an activity they like to do. That might be just sitting side by side or reading a story, whatever is meaningful for them, because every kid is so different. But actually just taking some time to reconnect, not just in the apology, but in spending some time with them. And it's really important because it models that we all make mistakes. Just because we're adults doesn't mean that we are perfect. It helps them to learn we all make mistakes, even as adults, and the importance of actually acknowledging that and repairing and modelling that for our child is so, so helpful.
I think we found ourselves in those situations a few times. It's easy to focus on what's hard or what isn't working. How can parents start noticing their child and their own strength, even in challenging seasons?
Such a good question. I think sometimes it can be so hard to see in the day-to-day. Like we're in our worlds in the day-to-day, and sometimes it can actually be hard to see the progress that has happened or the strengths that are going on. It can be helpful to actually reflect back and ask ourselves, what was happening in this situation 6 months ago, and actually realise, oh no, they've progressed or things have changed or things are working better, and starting to notice what those things are. Sometimes it's hard to see in the day-to-day, but looking back can help identify a little bit better. I think how we frame that is important as well. So even we can feel like, everything's hard or nothing went well, but even asking, well, what went slightly better today? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly the way we'd like it to be, but often there are those small wins, or no, actually that went a little bit better. What was it about that went a little bit better? I think, and actually looking at your child's strengths. Your child has every child has challenges, but your child has strengths. Your child has things that come really easily to them, even though there might be lots of challenges. Your child has things that naturally they're interested in that you can use to make a win. It's actually looking for the good and the positive, because sometimes the bad can feel like it outweighs it, but the good and the positives are there. You just have to try and look and find them.
Yeah. And can you share an example of how a family might do that in everyday life?
Yeah, it could be exactly looking at something that your child loves and trying to make that a win. So it could be, your child loves clocks. I don't know, and so then you make that a big part of, right, so we've got a big visual timer and a reminder, hey, do you want to set the timer with me? Because we've got 5 minutes until we're going to leave the playground, but I've incorporated, hey, you can set the timer on my phone because I know that you like that, right? And so you're taking that interest or that strength, but then using it for something that's helpful in a transition. It could be some kids, they love to move. They're just not kids that sit still. So then you go, right, okay, we are going to use a 5-minute dance break or movement break, or we're going to use this, right, we're going to race from one end of the hallway to the other, whatever it is. And we're going to use that again, transition out of a hard moment, or I know that you're going to find it hard because you don't want to stop watching TV or whatever it might be, and so I'm going to incorporate this. It could be, using an interest to connect back with them after a difficult moment. It's just trying, you have to be creative, right? But it's actually meeting your child where they're at and finding their strengths and interests, and then figuring out how can we use these things to actually help support them with some of the other challenging moments that we face.
Yeah, that's so good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And how can families celebrate small wins without falling into toxic positivity? Staying honest, but still hopeful.
Staying honest, because it's very easy, I guess, for family like us, where it takes a while to see progress, and then once you see progress, you can pretty much get into the trap of like praising every little thing, and overemphasizing it more than you need to. But we don't. You also want to be positive, but you don't want to be like over too positive to a point in time it becomes, crazy.
I think that one of the challenges, but the things that can help with this, is this idea of you can hold two separate feelings or opposite things at the same time, right? So you can say, you know what, this was really hard, but we got through it. Right? It's holding the difficulty with the celebration at the same time, because I think toxic positivity is toxic because we just pretend everything's all good, right? No, it wasn't hard at all. It was just fine. It was excellent. It's like, no, but it was hard, right? So it's being able to say, hey, this was really challenging, but we actually got through another day, or it was slightly better than the day before, or whatever it is. Being able to hold both helps it not be so toxic, but also helps because, hey, there is something to celebrate in whatever the challenge is. So I think, holding both can be really helpful. And sometimes the small win is, we got through the day, and that is the win, right? Yeah. And we see that progress is happening and things are getting easier over time. But I think being able to hold both the difficulty and the celebration is helpful.
100%. Now, I want us to switch gears and talk about the strain it has on couples. For many couples, culling the road of raising a kid with extra needs can start to create distance. And we're hoping that we'll be able to sort of help people catch some of these things early before it becomes too much. What patterns do you see in relationships under long-term stress? Because like I said, it's like long-term hypervigilance.
Yeah.
And how can couples interrupt these patterns before it starts to really affect the marriage?
Yeah. There's a couple of patterns that can happen. Look, honestly, these can happen in any relationship, but particularly when you're under a lot of stress over time. One, it becomes almost like scorekeeping about who's doing more or who's having the harder time. Well, no, because I did this and then I did this and you didn't have to worry about that. No, but I did this and then this was even harder and I also have to work and but yet I'm home all the time. And look, this can happen in all relationships, but particularly when there's a lot of pressure, it's so easy we just see the burden that we're carrying and we forget that our partner is carrying a burden too, and that really we're carrying that burden together. And so trying to really recognize you're in it together, and you might carry different parts and that might be different, but you are a team doing it together is really important. The other thing that can happen is you can fall into this idea of like, we're co-workers and we're managing different parts of this dynamic and actually forget that you're romantic partners, because you're just, again, the day-to-day of this needs to be done and this needs to be done and this appointment and drop off and pick up, and you just get so focused on the logistics, and those things need to happen and you do need to be focused on them, that you can be in that role all the time and actually miss having little moments to connect as partners. Or sometimes you can see this dynamic where one person becomes the expert parent and they are in charge of everything. They're in charge of all of the appointments and they have the best understanding of what their child needs and all of the intricacies of that. And the other parent can feel sidelined and they can feel useless and they can feel like they have nothing to contribute. And that can be a really difficult dynamic to manage as well, because again, you want to, we can have different roles. That's not a problem. Someone can be in charge of all the appointments. That's totally fine. But you want to see it as you're a partnership doing it together. Otherwise, there can be a really big divide that can happen, and that's really problematic in relationships.
Oh, wow. That's powerful. I think there's a few things there where we're both guilty of. One or two things here. We're part of learning. We're learning.
Yeah.
We're learning.
I think there are dynamics in all relationships that are challenging.
Of course. Very, very important. What are some simple low-level activities or rituals or check-ins that couples can implement to stay connected, even when they have no time or energy left? Yeah.
There are some things you can do that are actually really small, which is helpful because time is a very real factor. But there's even research that has shown really simple things, like when you say goodbye, someone's going off to work or to an appointment or whatever, actually stopping to properly say goodbye. And even they talk about, they've done this research on this thing called the 6-second kiss. Have you heard this? Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So they did, all it is they did all this research, and they found when a couple says goodbye at the beginning of the day and they give a 6-second kiss, and all I mean by that is their lips touch for 6 seconds. That's it, right? It's just a meaningful contact moment, right? They found that those couples were much happier and felt more connected. And it's just as simple as saying a proper goodbye in the morning, or when you come home at the end of the day, actually stopping and saying a proper hello, a proper hug that's not just, hey, we did it, but an actual just, hey, how was your day? Proper hug, proper connection moment. I mean, it's 6 seconds. It feels like a very long time to have a kiss, but it's also very, very short, right? That's really meaningful and actually just gives you this moment to check back in, and it's so simple. It's not actually that big of it's not like you're investing in an hour a night date night. It's just 6 seconds to check in at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, and research show that it made a really significant difference. But I think there's other things too. It can be just having a small, even a 5-minute conversation in your day where you actually are not just checking in on, did you do this? Did you pick this up? Did you go to the appointment? But it's like, hey, how are you feeling today? How was your day? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling bad? You can share just the actual real deal of where you're at. And that can just be 5 minutes. And often it's at the end of the day and you're exhausted and you want to go to bed, but just a couple of minutes to check in emotionally. And I think in a week, if you could have maybe 15, 20 minutes, right? So, you've got these little moments at the beginning and the end of the day, maybe a 5-minute convo at the end of most days, but once a week, a 15, 20-minute moment where it's a proper, hey, where are we at? How are things? What worked well this week? What didn't work well? Is there a way that I could support you better? What do you need from me? How can I help you? And just this idea of, hey, we're on the same page. We're a team no matter what goes on. And we are our own, you've got your family, but you're your own unit and your own partnership. So just taking these little moments of time to connect and check in an emotional way, not just in a logistic way, can just really help to stay unified.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. get the clocks out, get the timer out tonight.
6 second kiss.
6 second kiss in the morning and afternoon. Put a timer on. Shh, that's it. Awesome. Often what we find, parents can often disagree on things like therapy approaches. What's a healthy way to navigate through the conflict? I mean, it's not just therapy. It could be a lot of other things around how we should raise our child, especially when you've got extra needs. The dynamics tend to be just a little bit different. So when parents are disagree around therapy decisions or modalities of how they could raise, what's the best way to navigate that conversation without turning into a major conflict?
Look, it is hard, isn't it? Because these are complicated things, and it can be hard to know what the right thing is, even individually, let alone to come to a consensus. It is really important that you find a consensus or some kind of compromise, because it isn't helpful when you're divided, and it's not helpful for your child. And it's actually really confusing if a child is getting different messages or different approaches on things. And look, that's hard. It's hard then to get on the same page. But it is important too. And so, if it's really, really difficult, that's where you might go, well, do we need to, have someone to help navigate this conversation with us? Do we need to seek advice? Do we want to get support? But at the end of the day, I mean, unless we're talking about something really meaningless like which cereal they eat, probably doesn't matter, right? But about the important stuff, you do have to find a way to get and be on the same page, because that's what's going to be best for your child. And we don't always have to fully agree, but we do have to come to whatever is the best compromise so that our child's getting supported in the same way, because that's what's best for them. So you've got to do whatever you can do to get on that same page about the big stuff.
Yeah, 100%. We've met a lot of single parents who are doing this on their own, and I always, my heart really goes out to them, because I think of the fact that if it's already too overwhelming for the two of us in a healthy marriage, it must be really, really tough to do this alone. So for single parents who don't have a partner to share the load with, what does support look like? And some of the challenges we find is with some of the single people we spend some time with is they're probably navigating through maybe some, intercoupled ex dramas and still looking after a child. So what does support look like for them?
Yeah, it's really challenging. Support then looks like you do need to find a support network outside of a romantic relationship, because everyone needs support. And so it is then trying to find a support network, whether that is family, whether that is friendships, whether that's in a community group, whether that is through, formal supports that you can access, but also informal supports, where you can rely on people and reach out to people and get that emotional support as well as practical help. You need to actually know that you need support. Everybody needs support. You cannot do this. I mean, I don't know how anyone can do it parenting alone, let alone when there's difficult challenges and other things at play. Everybody needs support. And so actually giving yourself permission to ask for help, receive support, and not feel like you have to give back in the exact same way. Sometimes we go through seasons where we just need to accept support and we're not able to give to others, and that's okay for a period of time. But you do need to find a support network. And you know what? For some people, that is really, really challenging because perhaps they don't have family close by. But then you've got to find some kind of support in the community with other parents, with other people who have been through similar things. Reach out to a support group. You've got to do something because we all need support.
Yeah, and I agree. We found that ourselves when we started. We were like, oh, where do we start? We need some support groups, we went out even to, for me, even just, obviously we've got church community, which is fantastic. We've got lots of support. We are really grateful for that. But, when you're walking that journey and you're like, nobody really gets this journey. So for me, I even look for autism groups on Facebook because I thought those people get me.
Yes.
I can see where their steps are at. So yeah, that's very well said, Sarah. That's very good. So again, talking about the heavy weight. So sometimes, the stress doesn't fade. It sometimes lingers. For some parents, experiences like, medical emergencies, public meltdowns, or years of high alert leave deeper marks. How does that show up as post-traumatic stress in carers or families?
I think some of the things that can show up in that kind of post-traumatic stress space is really that idea of hypervigilance, where you just don't ever switch off. You're always on high alert, whether it is, and almost it's like a default switch gets turned on in your brain, where even in moments where we don't need to be on high alert, where we're safe, or it's a fairly, there can still be this default to be on edge, on the lookout, hypervigilant. And that can sometimes then become unhelpful. And so it can be good to then have some strategies around that, which we can talk about in a second. But even sometimes like feeling like you're totally disconnected from yourself, you are just going through the motions in survival mode or autopilot, can be a symptom of that just constant stress and trauma. Or you find yourself avoiding situations or places because they're really associated with those difficult experiences. But avoidance can be problematic because it can actually reinforce this anxiety and this hypervigilance. And so avoidance can sometimes actually reinforce that cycle. And so being aware of some of those things is really useful to understand, because then you can look at what can you do in those situations to help.
Yeah. And what are the grounding techniques that parents can use when they feel themselves going through that and having flashbacks, especially in public?
Yeah, I think understanding that there is a degree of that which is automatic, right? And so not feeling, sometimes there are some things that our body just takes over and we can't help, right? And I think even understanding that can be useful, because it's like, why am I reacting this way, or what's going on? But just taking the pressure off of yourself is that your brain's trying to protect you. It's not always doing it in the most helpful way, but it's trying to protect you because you've been through a difficult situation. In terms of what we can do in those moments, there are practical grounding techniques and things to help us to calm back down. And look, a lot of that goes back to what we were saying before about try and take control of your breathing. So if you can slow down your breathing or count your breaths, or a really effective method for when we're feeling particularly really hypervigilant and on edge and stressed is the 4-7-8 breath method. Have you heard of that before? No. You just look, sometimes this is a good one to practice in moments when you're not stressed, because it's very hard to remember to do in moments when you are stressed, or there isn't a few different apps that are useful to use in those moments. But you just simply breathe in through your nose for the count of 4. You hold your breath for the count of 7, and you breathe out really slow for the count of 8. Look, to simplify it, right? What they've found simply is when we breathe out slower than we breathe in, that calms down our nervous system, right? So if you can't remember 4, 7, 8, who cares? Doesn't matter. It's just, I take a breath in and I breathe out really slow and controlled. And that signals to our body, okay, I'm actually in control and I can be calm and I'm okay. And when you breathe out, you almost breathe out like you're blowing out through a straw, right? So, and then it helps calm our body down. So it's a useful go-to strategy, because wherever I am in a moment, whether I'm out in public or whatever I'm doing, I can just, focus on my breathing for a couple of moments. There can be other things that can help calm down our nervous system. So sometimes, again, depends where you are, splashing your face with cold water, even like an ice pack on your chest, holding ice, all of these things, they help activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to calm us down. There can be simple things that we can do where we shift what we focus. So if we're feeling really overwhelmed, particularly if your thoughts are spiraling and you're just so overwhelmed and you feel out of control, you can just slow down and be like, they talk about the 5 senses grounding activity, where you simply go, okay, what's 5 things I can see? chair, table, light, plant. Okay, what's 4 things I can feel? Let me think about the texture. Okay, the table is hard. Okay, my jacket is soft. What can I hear? And actually just focusing on your senses in the present moment can help ground us and calm us down. So there's little go-to strategies that we can go to when we feel overwhelmed that help just calm us down, ground us to the present, to then get everything calm enough that we don't feel out of control.
That's fantastic. I think we'll be practicing that.
We'll definitely be practicing that.
That's really good.
Yeah. Next time your son is on the ground on TD Plaza, screaming at the top
I
of his
will
voice.
try and remember that.
That's it. Yeah.
If a parent recognizes themselves in that, what you've just described, what are some fast, safe steps to reach out for help?
I would start with your GP, especially if you have a GP that you know quite well. But even if not, most doctors, you could go to any doctor and explain what you are experiencing, and they themselves will have some good support, or they will be able to give you a referral to perhaps get some support or see a psychologist or access some counselling and get some support as well. But a doctor is a really good place to start.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Something's just come to my mind. I don't think we've talked about it. Grief. Talking about our journey, and I believe this is something that I've also seen. Every parent, when they receive a diagnosis, especially like something as heavy as autism, there is denial and grief that comes. Initially, you don't even know it's grief. Like I know for us, and again, talking from a Christian perspective, like if I'm to talk about our journey, we had seen a few symptoms, when he was younger, and we were like, I work in health, so I was like, oh, that looks interesting. And I do remember thinking, I wonder that looks like, I've seen people with autism do that. But in my brain I was like, no, my son doesn't have autism, no. Because I even spoke to Sheena and I was like, no, he's not autistic. And I remember, as a Christian, we're like, no, he's just, we could see he's a bit behind in his, milestones. We're like, oh yeah, he'll catch up. But then we're like, no, we'll just pray about it, which, prayer is always great. So we always pray. And I remember it was at a time where we had prayer and fasting like we do right now. And I remember us going for prayer and fasting, and this was my top list. There was a few other things that I was praying for, but this was one of our top lists, like, God, our son has developmental, so he's behind. But I'm sure, God, you can fix this. And I had faith. I had full faith that God can fix this. And full faith, and we prayed, and I remember we were writing it on the screen. It was there. And then soon after, I think we went for the diagnosis. And so in my brain, I think me and John were like, yeah, he's just behind, but we'll go for it anyway. We'll go for the assessment.
Or even if he got the assessment, he just like
it just be like mild.
Number one.
It's just not going to be, and lo and behold, we go for the assessment, and he does.
It's like boom.
It was like boom, level 3, non-verbal autistic child. And I remember because me, John, the psychologist, and I was just like, sorry, what? And it was the shock. It was the denial. So we went through that, and I remember we went home, and for me, I was just like a mess. And I didn't realize at the time, but it's like the grief. Because I remember calling my sisters and going, we're just devastated. Like, where do we go from here? But then also to me, as you said, we're Christians. We've been Christians all our lives, or since we were young. And then I was just like, God, I feel disappointed. I feel, God, like you didn't answer our prayer. Like, I pray that, miraculously he will snap out of this. And then, of course, there's that grief in which, because initially I was just thinking, okay, what do we need to do to fix this? And so we, obviously went through that journey, and, thank God, we had great friends and people who supported us, people like Sheena and, wonderful friends who have an autistic child, so they're able to walk us through the journey. And we started the process of therapy and everything. Because at that time, he wasn't talking at all. So we were like, oh my goodness, okay. And then for me, because I work in hospital, I've seen some really severe cases. So I was thinking, oh my goodness, my son is going to be like this. So it was really hard for me. And but anyway, we started going through the journey, and God, of course, has always been with us, and we're at a point where we accepted, and but I know a lot of parents struggle with that. But then the other struggles that I find, which got us here to even do this podcast, where then you meet other Christians who kind of tell you, and we got told this: you people need to take your son for healing service. This is after we've done this, we're here. So thankfully by this stage we're like, it's okay, we understand, we know what autism is, we know, the thing is, we keep praying, we keep believing, and we can see the journey, but we also need to do the work. So I suppose, and because we know that there are the parents out there who are not taking their kids for therapy, because we're just going to pray and just keep our child at home. Or autism and Christianity. Autism, they don't coexist. There's this whole belief out there with some people, which is why they're like, no. You're just going to pray this out of your child. Because it did get to us, and sometimes we're like, we pray. We actually pray every day. We fast.
Yeah.
We know the Lord is with us, but there is a lot of parents out there who are really struggling with this. What would you speak into that as a psychologist and as a pastor?
Look, it's so tricky, isn't it? I think that grief is a real part of it, because, you grieve the future that you imagined for your child. You grieve the difficulties that they face, right? There's so much, whenever anyone has a child, you don't imagine anything challenging happening. You just imagine the good, and all the grief of how you thought things might look a little bit different. And so it's so hard. And I think the only way to work through grief, and grief is a journey, is accept it, right? If you can't acknowledge, hey, I'm disappointed, I'm hurting, I'm actually grieving, it's really, really hard to move through it, because you have to acknowledge, this is what I'm feeling. Look, I think that, whether we're talking about physical health, mental health, neurodivergency, whatever it is, even as a Christian, I find it interesting. Look, being in the role of both pastor and psychologist, I feel like sometimes people treat physical health and then other things so differently, when really there's some similar principles that can apply. Because if I had a physical health challenge, like perhaps I had diabetes, right? And I needed what type 1 diabetes, right? So I need medication, right? I'm not a nurse, I don't know, right? While I absolutely could pray for healing, and I believe that God can do anything, and do I believe that God could heal diabetes? Totally. And am I going to pray and ask for that? Absolutely. Am I also going to take my insulin? Yes, right? I'm going to do both. I'm going to listen to whatever the doctor's recommendations are and take those on board, and I'm going to pray. And I think sometimes when it comes to, mental health or other things, we can go to one extreme or another. But I'm like, why can't we do both? Like, pray. Do we believe that God can do anything? Absolutely. But am I also going to listen to doctor's advice or therapist advice, or put in strategies, or do everything within my power that is helpful? Yeah, I am. And I think that sometimes we just go, let's do both, right? Pray. I'm never going to tell someone not to pray. Yeah. God can do all sorts of things. Let's pray. But we also live in a world where there's brokenness and struggle and sickness and death, and that's not the way that God intended it to be. And I'm going to do everything that I can that is helpful from a practical, medical, therapy point of view, and I'm going to pray. And let's do both. But I think it's also not helpful to then ignore obviously prayer is so helpful, but then there are practical things too that need to happen, and ignorance is not helpful because it doesn't make things better. Yep, it is. You'll be amazed. I think somebody posted me something about,
autism is from the devil, your child is demon possessed. I was like,
that's just
thankfully we know it's not,
but it's also not helpful to share those things.
But it shows the ignorance out there and the lack of understanding with neurodivergence, which is why John and I were like we need to talk about this.
Yes.
We really need to do some awareness and get people like you and who can speak into this space.
And we've also seen a very big correlation between our level of acceptance of how God created our son, because the underlying factor is I always default to, when they do the baby dedication and they speak words to our kids, I always speak those words to my son every single night. Because I believe that regardless of what has come, that does not deflect the plan of God. Whatever original intention God had for him will still come to pass. It's probably me and my wife that needs to learn to get into the program, as opposed to us feeling like the plan of God has been derailed. No, the plan of God is still on schedule, still whatever it is.
I agree.
So good. It's me and Ruth catching up to go, okay, so that plan might involve a few years of therapy, a little bit of patience, and the reality is, if he was a neurotypical kid, chances are we will not be doing this. We never set out to become autism advocates or wanting to have podcasts. In fact, it took a lot of convincing
for me
to get Ruth on board in the podcast, because she's like, I want to be private, I don't want to talk about this kind of stuff. So it's a case of we've seen a very big correlation between acceptance and he is thriving. He is thriving. Like you see him around. He's a very busy guy. He makes us go to 2 services every Sunday morning. Every Sunday we go to church twice, because he wants to go to this 11 o'clock, and he also wants to go to the kids church, because he's got different friends in different ones, so it's kind of like okay, so we are learning to catch up to the original plan that God had for him, so nothing has changed. All right,
so good.
It's exciting. So I wanted to talk about a point that most of us parents feel, regardless of what sort of parenting you are. So most parents feel we go to bed feeling like we have failed. I mean, parenting can be a very, very emotional game. How can we start to change that in a story, like, especially when you've kind of spent the whole day fighting fires, feeling like, oh my God, I didn't win today? How can you start to change that in a narrative in your head, in yourself?
I think we first have to stop and actually look at what we're thinking. We think thoughts all the time and we just accept them as true, instead of actually asking ourselves, well, is this true? Is this balanced? Is this a right perspective? And so we can fixate on what we see as the failures and not even recognize the 1,000 other things we did that were right and helpful and good. We can just 3 things went wrong, but 100 things went right. And so actually just reflecting, is this fair? Am I like, okay, I'm such a failure, today was a failure. Is that even right? Is that true? What evidence do I have? Am I only looking at the negatives, or am I looking at the big picture? Even sometimes asking yourself, because we can be so harsh on ourselves. What would I say to a friend who came to me and said, oh, I'm such a failure? No, you're not, right? This, and this. Well, that applies to me too. And so, stopping and applying that stuff that I would say to someone else, we got to recognize we can only do our best. We can only do our best. We're not perfect. Things go wrong, and just having a bit of compassion towards ourselves, and even instead of even little things of reframing. So, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done this, can just be, you know what? Next time I'm going to try this. Right? It's just a very small different way to say it, but I should is so heavy and weighty and judgy compared to, all right, maybe next time I'm going to try it this way differently. Just that small different reframing takes the weight out of it, so we don't, accept things that aren't actually true, because we're not failing, we're doing the best we can.
Are there some small mindset shifts or language changes that make a difference, that helps parents to show themselves more compassion?
I think things like, not such black and white thinking, but recognizing that life's complicated and there's grey. And even things like, this is really hard, but I'm doing my best. Or, you know, yes, I lost my temper, but I'm a loving parent. Like trying to see the balance of everything can be helpful. Yeah, eliminating language like I should or I must, because that puts pressure on us. And just, trying to show ourselves that compassion.
Awesome. What does it look like for someone to move from that consistent firefighting place to a place of growth and calm? Like, what are some of the even when it feels messy?
Yeah. I think we have to recognize that growth isn't just linear in a straight line, that there are ups and downs, but often when you look back over time, you see change and progress, right? So I think we can be so hard on ourselves where if we have a bad day, that's it. Like I'm back at square one. There's no point in even trying. But you're not back at square one. You just had a bad day or things didn't go exactly the way that you planned. Growth happens over time. So if I can look back over a 6-month period and go, I'm yelling less than I was 6 months ago, I've grown, right? I might have yelled yesterday, but I'm doing it less often, or I'm using other strategies. We can't look like it's so hard to see growth and change in the day to day. You've got to look back over time and go, yeah, there've been ups and downs, but there actually has been growth in this area, because if I make one mistake and I'm like, that's it, there's no point trying, well, then I'll never grow. So it's seeing that change over time and not being too hard on ourselves, and knowing that we'll never be perfect either. And whatever you're trying to grow, or whatever change you're trying to see, your child's not going to be able to be perfect. You're not going to be able to be perfect. You've got to have some grace.
Wow, that is so good. That is so good. Well, for a parent listening today who feels at breaking point, maybe exhausted, anxious, or disconnected, what's one thing they can do tonight or tomorrow to take the weight off, even slightly?
I would say even just a small thing of find something really small that you can do for yourself, even if it's for 5 minutes, right? So it might be you go and you make yourself a cup of tea and you have 5 minutes where you just drink your cup of tea, and you're not multitasking, you're not doing it, you're just sitting and you're having a cup of tea, right? Or whatever that version is for yourself. Just find 5 minutes for yourself to do something just for you. Reach out to someone, let someone know, hey, today was hard and this is why. I think that's a really small thing that we can do as well. And remember that you don't have to have it all together, and that you're doing your best, and actually just be kind and compassionate to yourself in this journey that you're in. I think they're little things, but they can make a difference, to just, show compassion, reach out to someone, and just take a couple of moments to yourself.
That's so good. So good. And finally, Sarah, where can parents find more support if they need to talk to someone or learn more about these strategies?
I think, look, it can be hard to find support. I think that really you need support from other people who are going through a similar journey, right? And so there's lots of good, professional support out there and things that are really helpful, and family and friends, but there's nothing like being able to talk to someone who has a similar lived experience to you, who can let you know, oh my gosh, yes, me too. It's not the same. Someone can tell you all sorts of great advice, but you need to find support from someone who has some kind of understanding. To be honest, you guys probably have a better idea. I mean, there are some good, there's Parents Helping Parents, but I think that's an online resource. I think there's a group called My Time who do groups that actually meet in person. But you guys probably have a better idea than I do. But I do think it is about finding support of people who have a similar experience to you. That's what makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like for us when we started, it's having our friends who they were like our go-to for everything. We're just like, can we catch up? Can we have coffee? Yeah. And it was just like, oh, okay, all right, we'll get through this too. Especially when the child, when they're melting down and you're like, oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. It's also even things like looking for facilities that are friendly, like place we take our son. Yeah, like we Rock the Spectrum.
It's called We Rock the Spectrum. He's here in South Australia, and just even reaching out to your normal friendship, because I kind of feel like when you're overwhelmed in one area, it starts to spill in other areas, and then you kind of feel like you're all over helpless. So even leaning on, it might not just be for, even leaning on our friends like you. Spend a lot of time. She'll be feeling overwhelmed. She'll go catch up with her friend Sheena, and I'll go catch up with the boys, and get support from other areas. So having people that we can reach out to support, and we're hoping to be able to support people who are going through this. So if you're watching this video, tell us in your comment whether there's any way we can support you or recommend things. But there's lots of good supports out there that you can apply not to feel isolated. I think the biggest thing we can do is isolate ourselves. And I understand why people tend to go down the isolation path. I can totally understand what it's like. But if you can find a way to sort of plug into a sort of community, that has made a really, really, really big difference for us. And we're very privileged in a way that we've got a church that has a special needs, a program for kids with extra needs, where our son has really, really thrives. And and we know that not everyone has that, but whatever you can do to find your tribe, whether it's find people who are going through similar experiences, or just people that can support you. I think that's what you need. Yeah. And it's been surprising. Like, we did not know how our extended family was going to cope and manage, and they've really adopted really well. And our son gets along with everyone in my family. So sometimes it's like I said in earlier on, it's our willingness to go and say we need help. Our willingness to say we need help and we're struggling and we need help. That's probably made the biggest difference. Our willingness to seek out the help, and the second thing is accept the help, knowing that we're not always going to be able to return the favor at that season. That's been a really, really good thing. So,
no, it is.
Yeah, it's very good. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for your insights. Is there anything, where can people find you, connect with you, other than the Futures Wellness website?
Just the Futures Wellness website.
We'll put a link below. So thank you so much for your time, Sarah.
Thank you. I think that this is such a great thing and is such an encouragement and support to so many people. So well done to you too for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Cool.